Good afternoon, wonderful candidate. As I'm here to take you on economics, okay? And my name is Mr. Bade, okay? Yeah. So I would like us to just do an introductory part to economics today. That is introduction to economics. Introduction to economics. All right. All right. So looking at economics, okay, economics, from the word economics, okay, there are some certain things you can actually reason into the meaning of what economics. All right. Now, basically speaking, economics actually gained popularity in the early 18th century. All right. And that was by Adam Smith. Okay. Now, in time past, that is, let's say, years and years and years ago, maybe like 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago, economics does not really have solid ground. Okay, though it was being practiced by people in the society. All right, it was being practiced, but it did not gain popularity as it is now, whereby people study it as disciplines in school, and all that. Okay, now, if you look at economics, economics simply means the Greek word. Let's start with that. The Greek word for the word economics, okay? Greek word for economics. Let me make this like this. It's called oikonomia, okay? Oikonomia. That's actually the Greek word, oikonomia. Oikonomia stands for economics. Now, I can actually separate this thing into two base words. From oiko, I can take oiko here and say this is oiko. Then nomia here, I can actually call it homos. And in the Latin term, we can call it nimen. This is Greek here. This homos here is Greek. Then in the Latin term, we can call it nimen, Latin. I call it nimen. All right? So we are still saying the same thing, okay? What we are actually trying to say is what? Oikonomia actually stands for household management. So this oiko here stands for the household. All right? Then my homos or nimen stands for what? Management. Management. Okay? So this is just like when you say the word economics, this is what economics, sound. This is the real basic meaning for the word economics, oikonomia. Oikonomia, when you take oikonomia, you call it what? Economics. But if you try to look at it from the genealogy, okay, or the etymology of the word, you try to break it down, which is oiko and what? Homos. Homos is for Greek, nimen is for what? Latin. Then oiko, both of them. Then the oiko here means household. Then the homos or the nimen means what? Management. Okay. So in one word, what do you call economics? Household management. Household management. Okay. Now, before we can actually, let's take a smooth ride to economics. All right. Now, the thing is, what is economics? What is economics? What is it about? When you hear the word economics from various perspectives or angles, what do you call economics? Economics simply means production, consumption, and exchange of resources within an economic system. Within an economic system. Within an economic system. So when you say the word economics, like we have definitions for economics, okay? We have the definition. But when you say what is like the general meaning for economics, economics simply means production, consumption, and exchange of resources within an economic system. Okay, within an economic system. So it is from this meaning, from this explanation here, it is from here we now have various definitions of economics by various scholars or experts or whatever you call them. Okay, all right. So when you hear the word economics, you can have production, consumption. I would even like to add one more thing here. Though you have production, okay, you have consumption, you have exchange, right? Now you can even decide to add more. You can say exchange and distribution, okay? You can add one more, and distribution of resources within an economic system, okay? So that is what is economics. Now let's now move into the definition of economics. Definition. All right. Now, for the definition of economics, I'll walk you through 4 basic headings. Definition of economics. Now, we are going to be looking at 4 headings for the definition of economics. 4 headings. The first heading is, we call it classical definition. Classical definition. Or we call it the wealth definition. Wealth. Okay. The next one is neoclassical. Neoclassical definition. We can call it welfare. I call it welfare definition. Okay. Then we have what you call the scarcity definition. Okay. We can also call that one pre-Keynesian. Pre-Keynesian. All right. Pre-Keynesian. Then we have the last one, which is the growth-oriented. Growth-oriented definition. Now, these are the, these are like topics, subheadings that has the definition of what? Of economics. The first thing is what? Classical definition. And the classical definition can also be called the wealth definition. Then you move to the next one, which is what? Neoclassical definition. It can also be called the welfare definition. We also have scarcity definition, which can also be called the pre-Keynesian. Now, let me play around this place a bit. If you have pre, pre simply means before. Now, I said something. I said economics was existing what? Years, hundreds and hundreds years ago, right? Now, there is someone that actually made economics a discipline. Now, I'm going to tell you the name of the person here. There is someone that actually made it to be very, very popular and famous, that it became discipline in what? In schools and educational institutions, right? Now, that person actually modernized economics, okay? He modernized it, because before it was not seen like that, right? So, and that was in the early 18th century, okay? Now, so there was someone we called Maynard Keynes, okay? There's someone we call Maynard Keynes. Maynard Keynes, a very handsome, fine man. Maynard Keynes. Keynes. Now, this guy is an economist, okay? Though he's dead since, okay? But we actually call this guy, he explained a lot of things about economic theory that relate to what? Inflation, money supply, and so many other things that deals with macroeconomics, okay? You will learn that shortly, don't worry. There's something we call the micro, there's something we call macro. You learn it shortly, don't worry. Now, this Keynes guy, okay, he explained things that is what? Generally specific to what? The macroeconomics. Macro, is it? M-A-C-R-O, macro. So before this guy came and began to explain his own part of economics, there was something we call pre-Keynesian, okay? And pre-Keynesian was given by what? Scarcity definition. All right, good. Then the fourth one is growth-oriented definition. Growth-oriented definition, okay? Now, so let's take them one by one and see, the names of the person and how they defined economics, okay? Now, the first one is what? Classical definition. This classical definition was given by somebody we call Adam Smith. So this is number 1, this is number 2, number 3, and number 4. So number 1 is given by Adam Smith. Adam Smith. Okay? He was actually called the father of economics. Okay? Don't forget, he was the one that made it very popular and made it a discipline. Okay? Now, Adam Smith, he has what you call the welfare definition. Now, you should be curious to know, how then did he define economics, right? You should know that once you can hear wealth, that means the guy was centered on what? On wealth. So let's hear his definition. Adam Smith, he defined economics. He defined economics as an inquiry into the nature and the causes of the wealth of nations. All right. So you can see now, Adam Smith defined economics as an inquiry into the what? Nature and the causes of the wealth of nation. Now, please look at something here. Inquiry into the nature, inquiry, right? And the causes of the what? Wealth of nation. Now, this guy's definition is pointing out some certain things. Look at the first thing he's pointing out. Number 1, he's pointing out activities that brings wealth. Activities that what? Brings wealth. Okay. Now, when I say activities, I mean productive activities. And what are those productive activities? Don't forget, the productive activities are those activities I stated for you earlier: production, distribution, exchange, and consumption. Okay. So those are or let's just say economic what? Activities. Then the next thing is what? The wealth itself. Wealth. Or let's just call it wealth maximization. Okay. You see, inquiry into the nature and the causes of the wealth of nations. He did not only talk about wealth, but he actually explained how you can maximize what? Wealth. All right. Then the wealth we are talking about is what? Material wealth. Material wealth. Okay, material wealth. So these are the 3 things that Adam Smith was talking about when he talks about his own definition. Now, don't forget, he was regarded as the father of economics, right? And his definition of economics is he defined economics as an inquiry into the nature and the causes of the wealth of nation. Now, he did this in the year 1776. Okay. Now, he had a book. He wrote a book, and the name of the book is called Causes of the Wealth of Nations. Wealth of Nations. So he actually he gave these definitions of economics in this book in the year 1776. You can see now. So this was an Adam Smith definition. What's the first thing he's talking? What is the first thing that his definition is actually throwing light to? The first thing is what? Activities that bring wealth. Economic activities that brings what? Wealth. Okay, what are we to do to bring wealth? We are to produce. If you don't produce, you can't bring wealth. If you don't exchange, you can't bring wealth. If you don't distribute, you can't bring wealth. And if you don't consume, wealth cannot occur. Then the next thing is wealth maximization. Fine, we have made the wealth. Now, how can we maximize the wealth? Okay, then the next thing is what? The wealth that we are talking about. We are talking about what? Material wealth. Material wealth like money, like resources, okay, and that. Then we move on to neoclassical definition. Neoclassical definition, we can also call it the welfare definition. Welfare definition. Okay, so let me clean this part so that neoclassical, that would be number 2. Now, for neoclassical definition, this guy, his name is called Alfred Marshall. Alfred Marshall. Alfred Marshall. Now, he defined economics in the year 1798. Alfred Marshall. Okay? Now, when Alfred Marshall was giving his own definition of economics, you know, he considered some things about Adam Smith, but he only gave it a little bit of advancement. Are you okay now? For example, now you can be having an argument with your friend, okay, with this, with that, with that. Now, this is actually how you get to win a case, or you get to win an argument, by taking up someone else, you know, idea and adding your own to it. So that was what this guy did. Okay, Marshall. He just took Adam Smith's definition, refined it, and added something to it. So let's see how he defined his own. He defined economics. So he defined economics. He defined economics as the study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. The study of what? Mankind in the ordinary business of life. The study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. Now, look at this. The guy is looking at mankind, and the guy is looking at business. Now, anytime you hear the word business, business is also talking about what? Wealth. Because the idea of business is to what? Generate profit. And profit generation or profit maximization also relate to what? Wealth maximization. Are we getting it now? So that means that once Alfred Marshall is talking about business, he's also borrowing from what? Adam Smith idea. But the only thing he added to it was that he added the mankind part of it. All right. Now, what makes the definition different was that Adam Smith was kind of a guy that, you know, he can go any length in what? In maximizing wealth. In maximizing what? Wealth. Now, let's say you are in an organization, okay? You are the manager. Now, there are 2 ways you can what? You can engage in to enforce compliance, or to enforce obedience, or to enforce what? Productivity. Number 1, you can be extremely nice. Okay, you can be extremely nice in the organization. You know, you can give a lot of incentives and bonus to encourage your staff, right? Now, that is a way you can what? You can boost efficiency in your organization. And you can also do it in another way, whereby you don't add any form of bonus, okay? You are very strict, okay? Any form of laziness or non-compliance, straight sack. You know, just dismissal. Okay. Now you can be very strict or harsh, or you can be very what? Nice and encourage your staff, like welfareism. Okay. Now that's what makes this guy the welfare definition. Okay, because he took that welfare part, studying the what? The human being in entirety, so that he can know how to what? Maximize wealth in a more efficient way, or in a more human way. Unlike what? Adam Smith. Okay, Adam Smith is talking about activities that bring wealth. Okay, he's talking about wealth maximization and material wealth. Nothing here talks about what? Mankind. Nothing here talks about what? The feeling of mankind. Okay, all right. Now, we move on to number 3. Number 3's definition is scarcity definition, which is given by, we can also call it what? The pre-Keynesian definition. And the name of this person is called Lionel C. Robbins. The C is called Charles. Lionel Charles Robbins. Let me just put the name there. Lionel Charles Robbins. Lionel Charles Robbins. Okay? Lionel Charles Robbins. Now, his own definition came in the year 1938. 1938. Now, this guy's definition, this is the scarcity definition, okay? Now, it was actually called the well acceptable definition, okay? It was called the well acceptable definition. Now, it is called that because it encompasses a lot of things. Are you okay now? That's how they put it as what? Well acceptable definition. All right. It's just that they call it that because it encompasses a lot of things. You see the definition now. He defined economics as a science or as a social science which studies human behavior. Which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. Alternative uses. You see why we call this guy, why people refer to him as a well acceptable definition? Because number one, he regarded economics as what? As a social science. Number two, he says economics studies what? Human behavior. Number three, he says it's as a relationship between what? Ends and what? Scarce means. And it did not stop there. It tells us that those means has what? Alternative uses. So you can see, this is the reason, because this definition here kind of covers everything. Okay? It kind of covers everything. Now, define economics. It defined economics as a social science. So now let's take these components one by one and let's see what they actually mean. Okay? So let me clean this part here. Now, Lionel Charles Robbins, okay, or let's just call him Charles for short, okay. Now, Charles said economics is a social science. Okay. Number two, he says it is a human behavior. Number three, he studies ends. Number four, he says scarce means. Then lastly, he says alternative uses. Alternative uses. Now, when you say social science, okay, now we have science and we say social. That is a science that is what? Social, right? Now, what actually makes that science social? The part that makes it social is because you are trying to apply some knowledge and ideas of science within the society. Do you get it now? Now, let's just consider science alone. Don't put social. Now, when you say science, okay, we are referring to physical science, like physics, like what? Chemistry. Okay. Now, when you take physical science, okay, physical science like physics, there are laws you apply. For example, in physics,